Hi everyone, it's Yulia here. This is my second video on dictations, and today we're going to look at a different kind of dictations. We've already spoken about opinion dictations, and today we'll look at something else. So let's go. So today's video is about dictation races, so let's take a look at what they are and how they work. Step number one, you divide your class in groups of 3 or 4. Then you're going to nominate captains, which is usually a stronger student, but it's completely up to you because you know your class dynamics a little bit better. If we speak about younger learners, this could be a disruptive student or somebody who is a dominant student. So you know them better. So it's definitely your call who you want to make a captain. Then captains get a text or word statements, whatever the text is, and nobody else in their team can look at it. So just for the captains to dictate. They read it out loud, their group listens to them, and they write it down. At this point, you need to be very clear with your instructions. So for example, things like, can captains read the text more than once? Do they need to read the whole thing before they can repeat bits, or can they go back and forth as many times as they want? How many times they can repeat the text. So anything you want them to do, make sure to say it out loud and then ICQ that with good, clear ICQ. When a group finishes, that's when the captains can show them the text, and that's when everybody checks with that original text and they correct any mistakes that they have. This is spelling mistakes, this is punctuation, maybe they missed a word or whatever, paragraphing, everything needs to be the same as in the original text. And then the first group to finish here means that they've written it down and they've checked and they've corrected their mistakes. The first group to do that wins the race. Ta-da! And that's all, that's the activity. Now, if it's a lower level group, obviously you're not going to make them write down a whole paragraph on something. Those could be just words or short phrases, sentences. Same goes for younger students. If you've got very young learners, those could be words or short phrases instead of sentences or texts. For higher levels, you could increase the challenge, and then you can only go so far with difficult grammar and all that. So you might want to incorporate other things like connected speech features in the sentences that you include. You could just sneak in some things that you've recently discussed, so like intrusive sounds or elision or whatever you've spoken about with them recently. Or you can use it as a test and then not say anything about it, keep your ears peeled, listen to what's going on as they dictate it, and then use it for like as an intro to teach them some pronunciation, right? So it's like you test one if it was a test each test kind of thing. Then if it's young learners, again, anything kids needs to be super engaging. We need to make sure they're paying attention. We need to make sure they don't switch off 3 minutes after you start the activity. So again, just maybe writing on mini whiteboards instead of just a paper. You could offer some incentives. So what does the winner get, right? So if you win, what is it? So maybe no homework, or maybe a longer break for the winning team, or I mean, you know your students, stickers work sometimes. So just whatever you think is gonna work with them, make sure you're engaging them. And then again, I'm gonna be saying this whenever I make a video about an activity, just make it relevant, make sure your students know it's meaningful and how it's meaningful, and just do your best to make it such to your students. So that's how you can adjust. And then if we speak about why this activity is such a great one, well, point number one, it motivates the students because it's a competition, because it's students-led, because they get to self-correct, they get to peer teach, all of that. So it's all them. And it's quite motivating for them to see how they do and what they can do and what they can't do. So again, it's about noticing the gap and seeing what they can do and comparing it with the original text, and then being like, oh, okay, this is what I need to work on a bit more. It can be extended. So you can use this initial stage, as I said, as you test one. For example, you're going to teach pronunciation. So you listen to what they can do at this point, and then you build your whole lesson around it. It can be a lead-in where they dictate statements and then they share their opinions about it. It can be a text where you're then going to focus on the grammar of the text. It can be a revision. So it can literally work at any point of your lesson, and it can be a meaningful activity, and you can have a nice follow-up discussion after it, given that the text gives enough room for that. So that's why it has to be meaningful and relevant to your students. That's a big point. Again, it promotes teamwork and peer teaching. So because the teacher is just not involved, you facilitate the whole activity. You make sure they follow the rules. You make sure nobody's cheating. You're there to offer some assistance. The captains are leading the activity in a way, right? That's why I suggest that it has to be a stronger student or the dominant student. They have to self-correct. And then if they don't understand something, I usually encourage them to ask each other and try to figure out the answer, like, oh, why does this work in such way? So I encourage them to try and work it out. And then if they can't do it, we address that in feedback together. But essentially, it's them doing it and them fixing it and then figuring out why it works that way, and then them noticing the gap. What you can do is after they do it, you can have like a little reflection stage. So they correct their mistakes and they're like, right, so what did you notice? What kind of mistakes were the most common ones? What did you find challenging about it? And then can make them reflect and again, learn or train them a little bit. So that's another good point. Gives a chance for weaker students to gain confidence. So sometimes it's a good decision to make a weaker student or a quieter student a captain so that they get a chance to speak up and they get this chance to gain confidence, basically. Right. And then because the teacher is not doing anything, I mean, it's not like you're not doing anything, but you're not actively involved in the activity because the captain's lead it. And then everybody else is just writing things down. So they're all busy. They're all doing their thing. So it's easy for you to monitor. And that's how you know what you're going to need to address in feedback once they're all done. And this can be all the things like spelling, grammar. You can listen to what questions they ask each other and then decide what you need to address. Pronunciation is another big point. So gives you this space to decide where you want to go from it. So that's basically it. Very quick. The only thing you need for it really is the text and then an idea of where you're going to go after it. As I've said, it can go anywhere in your lesson, but just knowing what you're going to do after it so that it's not just a standalone random activity, a dictation for the sake of it being a dictation. As long as you know why you're doing it and then explaining it to your students if they question it, because very often what I realize is that students often don't realize that whatever you're doing, you're not just doing for fun. We've had this chat with my A2 pluses just recently about Kahoot. They're like, teacher, when are we going to do a grammar exercise? I'm like, what do you mean this is a grammar exercise? And it was like present tenses all mixed up Kahoot. And they're like, but this is a game. And I was like, yeah, but it's a grammar game. You get to think about grammar. So sometimes just being a bit more explicit with what you're doing and why you're doing it can be a good thing to do. So that's it. Yeah, so guys, that's all I have to say about dictation races. Thanks for watching this video as always. There are a couple more dictation things coming up and then we'll see where we go from that. If you've done something similar, let us know how it went. If you've got any questions, just let me know. We can have a chat about it. And then if you've tried a fun activity, tell us about it, because I think we have so much to teach each other that it's just great to share. So don't gatekeep your good stuff. Stay in touch. I'll see you around. Thanks for watching this one. Bye.